On this episode, I talk with fellow Second Class Cowboy. My guest is Paden, and what's a Second Class Cowboy? Well, when you grow up in a small town like us, and you're not a typical small town kid, you get a Second Class Cowboy. You're friends with lots of different kinds of people. You've got a lot of friends in various groups. However, you just don't quite fit in. And as you get older and wiser, you realize it's a blessing and leads you to having best friends, and his best friend, my former guest, Logan Mills. So we do a little mixtape therapy with Logan and Paden that can be found exclusively on YouTube, and a special millennial version of the Sixer that can be found wherever you listen to podcasts. We also trade sneakers for art and then sneakers for the day. Let's jump in. Hey everybody, welcome to a Model Good podcast. We're back doing this thing again. And like always, before I get started, we're going to do our shout outs. So Joe Andrade of Media is in the house. Say what's up, Joe.
Yo, yo.
So he's the one that all the cool stuff you're going to see coming out of the podcast because he's here and he was recording. So it's awesome, right? My guy Jason, he has Wish Pocket there on Instagram and he does all my sound to make me sound good. My guy Jaron, he has No Names Originals. Support local artists in North Carolina. Support local artists. Yeah, right. Okay. And he does cool bleaching of clothes and like paintings and stuff like that. My guy Mo, he has a Go Bubble app. And if you use the promo code Go Moderately, you get a discount. And my newest sponsor, it's a Lone Sun, S-U-N, all right, Decor.
Mm-hmm.
Paden, what's up, man?
How you doing today?
Good.
Yeah.
How do you feel being a new sponsor on the podcast?
It's both an honor and a privilege, I'll say.
So really quickly before we get into this whole thing, like give people your shout outs where they find your artwork, all your socials, all your things real quick.
Yeah. Instagram at Lone Sun Decor, LONESUNDECOR. I think I spelled that right. And then I'm also on Etsy. But yeah, if you have any interest in my art or anything like that, don't go through Etsy. Just shoot me a DM. One thing I try to instill is if ever there's a piece of art that I do that you really like and, you know, you're struggling for money or something, we can always work something out. Etsy's just there for people that don't know me or don't know the site or anything like that.
Live in the UK or something.
Yeah, something like that. But if you're ever interested in a piece, I love commissions. I love doing stuff for other people. Let me know. Shoot me a DM at Lone Sun Decor, and then we can work something out very easily.
How would you describe your art? What is when I go to Lone Sun Decor on Instagram, what am I going to see?
Here's something we talked about before we got on camera is Second Class Cowboy.
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly like it fits my stuff pretty well. Like I wanted to be a cowboy all growing up. So I'd say it's like if Austin, Texas hippie met a small town redneck and kind of started making art, that I think is, it's me. It really is. And I got to give my dad a shout out. He helps me with a lot of the stuff, builds the wood and stuff. And my uncle was an artist. And so that's kind of where it all comes from. But
so when you say your dad builds the wood, so what part does your dad do for you when you're doing the art?
So I got these pieces that are big old slabs of mesquite that I'll epoxy over and paint on top of. And that was whenever I was a little kid, I used to just sit and like look at the grain of a door or something like that. And I would try to like find a face in it or try to find things. And that's where I've done a few epoxy pieces like that where I try to find what the sounds all hippy dippy, but like what really the wood is trying to tell me.
No, I think that's excellent. Yeah.
And so trying to bring that out, but one thing me and my dad have in common is we love working with our hands and we love quote unquote toys. So we bought this giant mill saw and it'll just slice a piece of mesquite like all the way through, like about an inch thick. And he likes to do it on the side just to have it for himself. And then I was like, hey, can I steal some of the funky ones that you don't use for furniture? And he was like, yeah, I don't care. And so he'd give me those and I would, use those to build something. And then he also, growing up, we did all of our own home restorations and all our physical labor ourselves. And so he would build furniture on the side, and he kind of got me into that as well. So
What that y'all like him doing that for you? Like, what does that aid to y'all's relationship? Like how does that? I mean, it's got to be awesome,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know what I mean? It keeps y'all connected in a way.
yeah, 100. I'll say I love my dad to death. Growing up, I think he probably had a much harder time with it than I did, because I was a weird little kid, and I was like a weird artist kid, always wanted to be a little different. And he was, Mr. Straight Shooter, conservative, just like button up, do your work, blue collar guy. And I think now having this art where we kind of like work together, we'd go build furniture together. We built like a table together. We built a bar together. And like, we also just rebuilt a truck together, and that was super fun. And those are the times where we get to like bond. I get to be a little weird and be like, what if we did this weird thing? And he's like, whatever. I just like working and bonding with my son, kind of thing. And so I do think that has been a huge help for our relationship. Not that we needed any help or anything, but like it's one of my favorite memories about Texas, is being able to work on stuff with my dad and just being like, oh, this guy's like my hero. He's like who I aspire to be. And like getting to have those moments where you get to actually work with your hero. I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My dad was a farmer growing up, and I miss, like, it's weird. Like, we'll go drive out like through like the country or something like that. It'll smell a certain way.
Yep.
And I'll remember like going out to the farm with my dad and doing stuff or whatever. And it's like, it's wild. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just I know I've heard it somewhere, but like smell is like one of the most connected to memory sense that you have. Me and my sister, one of our secret talents that we have is we can identify what animal it is by the smell of its poop. And I know it's weird, but like we'll drive through somewhere and I'm like, yep, that's cow. And she'll be like, that's horse. And we can just like name it for like horse, goat, cow, chicken, dog, cat. Like we can go down a line and just name, just by the smell of it, we can know where we're going. And we used to drive by like, like cattle land and stuff like that. And you can smell it every time. And it's like, oh, that even now where I'm at in Arizona, or whenever I was in Austin, you could smell it and you would be like, oh, I feel like I'm back in that small town. I have these memories coming back to me, and it's nice. Hey, Joe, really quickly. Do you remember like a perfume that a girl would wear in high school that like you'd be like, oh man, that just smells like so good? Do you remember what it was, or can you think of anything? Do you have anything like that?
Yep.
What is it?
I have no names, but I probably, if I smelt it, I'd remember it.
You smell it, you can get it.
What about? Do you know the name of yours?
Yeah, I had I don't want to say on and off girlfriend, but we dated for a little bit. Then we were just like really close, good friends. But her perfume was amber, I think is what it was called. Still to this day, I'll smell it every once in a while and be like, it takes me right back.
Yeah, I don't remember the names of any of them, but I think there was everybody that I would have like quote unquote dated in high school was shopping at like American Eagle and Hollister and shit like that. So whatever they sold there is probably what it would be. Walking into one of those stores, I'd probably have a fucking flashback. Yeah, for sure. Because like you walk by Abercrombie and you're just like hit with that shit when you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
and like for sure would like, oh yeah, I remember her.
Yeah. My buddy Logan and I recently went to Hollister and we each bought like Jake. You remember Jake?
I remember that one.
Still to this day is one of the best smells in the entire world.
This is another one of those things you don't remember.
Strong.
Oh, that's fair.
I remember, but growing up, I lived out kind of in middle of nowhere in California, ironically. And I had to drive by multiple dairy farms to get to school. I went to school in this really rural, like kind of little town.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally same concept. Like if I smell it, I go, oh, I remember driving to school like that and playing Little League next to the dairy farms and stuff.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I did something a little bit different with you. Like, so we were talking about like sneakers and being a sneakerhead and stuff like that.
Yep.
And you did a piece of art for me, right?
I did.
Really quickly, you said you were excited to do that.
Oh yeah.
Like, so why were you so stoked to do that piece of art? Just curiosity.
Yeah. So I first thing, I recently moved to Phoenix and it's been like a long transition period. We were in an apartment for a little bit. Now we finally got a house and I'm getting my life together again. But it was probably the second commission piece I've had since moving to Phoenix. And it was great because it was like bam, bam, right after another. And it got me back into my hustle, do art, get back into the mind frame. And thank you very much for having me today. But like, it also coming on here gave me that like professional fire under my ass. Cause it was like, I got to get my Instagram back up and running, start doing all, cause I hate social media. I'm terrible at it, but it was like, oh, you got to get that going. That's part of the work. Like it's easy to do art. It's hard to work at art. And so like that was, I cannot thank you enough for bringing me on because it lit that fire under me. Even if this, you know, it's going to come out, but if it never did, I would still be grateful because it got me back in that mindset. Just like you requesting that piece got me back in that mindset. And on another level, there are a few like country artists, especially older ones that are a little more niche. And so the one you requested, Don Williams, Tulsa Time, and
I'll Believe in You.
I'll Believe in You.
Or I Believe in You, yeah.
I Believe in You is one that I heard it on Coke FM one time during their classic hour. And it was like my jam for about 2 weeks. I played it on repeat. And I was like, nobody's ever going to request a Don Williams piece. Like I had a Willie, a Waylon, a Hank Williams Jr., Johnny Cash. And I was like, those are obvious. Like everybody's going to pick those. Like they'll like those. But I was like, I'm never going to get to do a Don Williams piece. And you mentioned that as one of the artists you like. And I was like, that's it. You also mentioned Eric Church and George Strait. And I was like, those are mainstream. I might have a chance to do those again for somebody in the future. But I was like, nobody even knows Don Williams. So if I get somebody who like likes Don Williams, like I like Don Williams, it's like kismet. You know what I mean? It really felt like it all kind of came together. And I was so stoked.
And so we kind of start talking sneakers. Mm-hmm. And then I asked you if I could trade you a pair of shoes for this piece of art. So we made a trade. Yeah. Right. But then when you came in, you brought these custom Vans that I'm wearing. These are your custom Vans, right?
Love them to death.
And I was like, hey, do you want to wear a pair of my shoes? Mm-hmm. Right. And so we go upstairs and we're like, I'm digging through fucking boxes after boxes after boxes. Uh-huh. So based on like what information you gave me and then what shoes I gave you, what did you think when you opened that box?
So,
and these are the shoes, by the way, they're the Jordan 1 Wheats.
Dude, so clean. I honestly like, whenever we first started talking about it, you're like, what do you want to wear? And I was like, well, like Jordans, they're pretty cool. I don't know. I was like, I'm wearing blue, maybe something to match that. And you were like, okay. And then you went up there and we like looked, saw a couple blue ones, saw some with like whatever that shimmer Jordan that you have is, which is clean. Love that shoe. But then you were like, I know what I want. You pulled it out and this is my favorite color in the world, where it's not gold because it's not shiny, but it's not tan. Whatever this color is, it's like Carhartt, whatever this color, this is my favorite color in the world. And you pulled these out and I was like, oh, that's a beautiful shoe. I was like, you nailed it. And I don't even know if you knew what levels you nailed it on. Like you might've known the first 2 or 3, but like you hit 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I was like, that's the shoe I want to wear.
It's the official color of Second Class Cowboys.
Perfect. Yeah. I like it a lot. That's every shirt we make. It's got to be in this color.
Okay, I'm down.
I like that plan. Yeah. Plus that plays well with white and black. Clean, crispy.
And
yeah. Dude, it's going to be sick. That's one of my biggest fears.
Cancer?
Yeah.
Why is it a big fear?
Oh, because I know the medical expenses and stress on everybody else. I don't care for myself because I'm pretty sure. I mean, everybody gets cancer at some point in their life. Like what, 50% of people probably?
Would you?
Probably. If we're being honest with the numbers.
With me, they say 1 in 3 firefighters will die of cancer.
See? Yeah. So like, I know it's going to come. I don't care for myself because I know it's going to be bad, but.
If you get cancer, would you not tell anybody?
I wish. Like, that's how I would want to handle it, but you got to tell people because then if they just, you're going to be sneaking off to hospital visits and stuff, and then they're going to think you're living a second life.
Why do you have to tell people?
I mean, it's just going to be too hard to hide, but the idea of like sympathy, I really don't like it. And I don't want other people to I don't want to stress other people out with my shit. You know what I mean? Which is, I've been to therapy and we didn't crack that one, but yeah, I don't know.
Here's our unfortunate part. Everyone you interact with that's important to you, you should interact with them like like they would be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
And when you have cancer and you don't tell someone, mm-hmm. and then you die, they have this like regret of like, you should have told me because I would have treated you differently.
Yeah.
But why weren't you just treating me differently already?
From the get-go.
Why weren't you just living that already?
Yeah.
So I like when I spend time with my friends and stuff like that, I try to maximize that time with them and just be there with them. When I'm with my daughter, it's just her time together with us together. You know what I mean? I try to as much as I can.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels compartmentalized, but then it goes like, well, I'm making time for my daughter. I'm making time for my friends. So I feel totally comfortable making time for myself. And I don't feel like I'm like losing, like I'm not getting enough time for myself because I'm actually making it. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. You're not shorting yourself. You're not shorting other people. You're actually making a conscious decision to do it kind of thing. I agree with that. I think, that I lost my grandparents about a year ago. No, almost exactly a year ago, both of my dad's mom and dad. And it fucking sucked. But that was, you try to find the silver lining and stuff. That was a good silver lining, was realizing time's fucking short. Like I have some regrets of things I didn't do, things I wish I would have done. And it's like, well, you can regret that or you can apply it to your life for the future. And so I really try, like, my girlfriend has parents that we live close to in Arizona, and it's, they need things done around the house. And it's like, I try to tell her, I'm like, you're going to regret this. Like when they kick the bucket, you're going to regret not having gone and building that shelf for them or doing whatever the little things are, or like going down to your hometown for a weekend and not seeing those like one or two people you never see all that often. Like I think one thing I'm trying to do, and I'm realizing it as I'm saying it, is like try to reduce regret. Like less about doing what you wanted. Even if you're not the kind of person that can handle living a life that makes you happy, if like you're like, oh, I can't wrap my brain around that, then wrap your brain around living a life that you're not gonna regret, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
There's this famous Maya Angelou quote that says, oh God, how's it go? No matter what your relationship is with your parents, when they're gone, you will miss them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have this eternal connection to these people.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this theory that, like, say you're raised by just your mother or just your father, the fact that one of those is absence also has an effect on you as them being your parent and not being there.
Yeah. 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, I bought this card game and it's called Your Parents Are Human. And it's questions.
Such a good game. Such a good idea. I don't even know what it is, but I already like it.
It's just questions. It's like, I'm trying to think of one. What did your mom want to be when she grew up? Do you know?
Mm-mm.
Well, I guess we're going to ask her.
Yeah. I'm literally visiting her tomorrow. So I'm going to ask them. Yeah.
It's like that kind of stuff. And it just sparks a conversation, and it helps them as well. I don't know. Just seems.
No, I really, do you, if you can, please help me remember, because I want to get that game and actually like download it or something. One thing
it's like a handheld card game. It's like old school.
Perfect.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
That's all we do as a family is we play card games.
Okay,
so that'll be a good substitute for
Perfect.
it. I think that's such a good idea. It's what one of my best friends, Demore, and I talk about all the time. Is it's hard to realize growing up that your parents are just people. They're
they're not perfect. They're not normal. Like they're failing just like you do.
Exactly.
All the time. Yeah.
Like I'm 29 now, which I think is about whenever my parents had me. And I'm like, dude, if I had a kid right now, I don't know what I'd be doing. Like you're just trying to not screw it up. And that's all my parents are trying to do. And like, they don't, you forget everything from your early childhood really. And they told me these stories. Like once I got older, like my mom told me this story that she didn't tell me until I was like 21, and we were out drinking one night, and she was like, there was a time whenever you were a kid and you just wouldn't stop crying. And I was like, okay. And she was like, they tell you this thing when you get out of the hospital, don't shake your baby. You're going to want to, don't shake it. And she was like, I don't even understand why people would say that. Obviously you're not going to shake your baby. That's obviously you don't do it. And she was like, you just wouldn't stop crying. And I just shook you. I was like, please stop crying. And she admitted, she was like, I've never admitted that to anybody in the entire world because I didn't want your dad to have evidence if he ever left me that he would get to take you from me. And I was like, that's crazy, Mom. And like, I like turned to my dad and he was like, I didn't know that until just now. And I was like, did you do anything like that? And he was like, well, to be honest, you were about 3. And he was like, we grew up on, my mom worked for a pork processing company. So we got a bunch of free meat samples.
Mhm.
So hot dogs and like sandwich meat were what I grew up on because they were free and easy to access. And he was feeding me hot dogs and he didn't cut them up small enough. And I was choking as a baby. He doesn't know the Heimlich. He's just some blue collar scale worker. So he doesn't know what to do. He panics, grabs me just like a loaf of bread under his arm and is just running out to my mom. And luckily in doing so, I'm, a little 2-year-old just bouncing in his arm and it dislodges it. I cough it up before he ever gets to my mom. But he was like, I didn't know what to do. You were choking as a baby. And we're a bunch of rednecks from Laverne.
Well,
We didn't take parenting classes.
That's called the redneck Heimlich. You never heard about that? Yeah, never heard of that before.
The redneck Heimlich. And I was like, it's crazy to hear those stories. Or like once you get of the age, I think for me, it was whenever I could legally start drinking because my parents were, no drinking in high school. They were very conservative, very like, you're under our house, live by our rules kind of thing. And then once I got to college, it was a little more don't ask, don't tell. And then once I was 21, I mean, it was a free for all. Like I love drinking with my parents because that's when they would tell stories about their old drinking days and they would tell me all these crazy things they used to do. And they were drinking in the 80s when you could still drink and drive and do all sorts of hoodlum stuff. And so you like learn these stories and you're like, oh, you're just like I am. Like you actually respect him as a parent for always, but then you start to like learn them as a human being. And that's what my friend Demore and I talk about all the time is realizing they're just human beings. You got to have conversations with them. You got to understand like where they're coming from. And I think it's done a tremendous amount for helping my parents realize who I am and me realize who my parents are and why I'm the way I am.
It made y'all's relationship real, right?
Oh, it made it 1,000 times better is becoming their friends. Like I hear people talk about it. I'm not a parent, so I don't know, but like you're not supposed to be friends with your kids. And I think that's fair growing up. You are the decision maker. You're the person that keeps them out of trouble. But then once they become their own person, like be friends with them. Like that's somebody you get to always, it might as well be your brother or sister. Cause like I love my sister, one of my best friends. And it's like now I just get one new best friend with both of my parents and you can talk and be honest. And like you tell them stories about, I got drunk the other night and I did this and they'll laugh with you. They're not just like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. They realize they can be themselves with you and you can be yourself with them kind of thing, When
I think about the relationship with my daughter, I think about that. Like when I say I don't need to be her friend.
Yeah. What
I'm really saying is I'm not going like, I don't need to enable her. I'm not going to enable, like, I'm not just like, but when we talk about like friendships, like you and Logan,
right?
What makes y'all friends is the fact that like y'all could call each other out kind of and hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
So when I hold her accountable, I am being her friend.
Yeah.
And probably on some level, your parents kind of did that with you.
A little bit,
that's why y'all became friends.
Yep.
Later on in life. And I think that's probably, when I think about my friends that have kids that are a lot older than mine and stuff, that's what they're kind of doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're holding them accountable and then they become friends because like there's a genuine trust and a realness there. Right.
Yeah. 100%. We have a buddy back in Arizona and like she has a kid now and he's probably 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. And there are times when, as a parent, you panic and you're just like, don't do that. And you like yell at them, you scold them or whatever. And you realize like, that's not how you teach. The way she tells it, she's like, that's not how I want to teach him these lessons. And then he'll like understand, do what he needs to do. And then he'll come back to her and be like, hey, I didn't like how this worked. Like, why'd you yell at me? That didn't make me feel good. And she's like, got it. Like noted. She's still a human being. So she's like, yeah, I will work on that as a mother. And I think that's, again, not one of them, but I think that's one thing I'm going to try to do if I become a parent is like, I'm trying to figure this out. And if you have feedback as a kid, I would like to know, even if I'm not going to adjust to it, just like if you give your manager at your job feedback, it's not their responsibility to like immediately adapt to it. But it's like, oh, that's good. If I want to be a better manager, I will listen to what my subordinates say. If I want to be a better parent, I will listen to what my kids say. You know what I mean?
I'm open to my daughter's feedback.
Yeah, I think that's great.
But like right now she's in a phase where you're like, hey, I need you to, and she goes, I can't. I'm like, the fuck you, fuck you can. Like, what do you mean you can't? You know what I mean?
Man.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. I still remember best lesson I ever learned. My parents we didn't really get spanked or anything like that. It was very rare. The one time my mom hit me in the chest, and it was because I was being a little shit. She was 100%. She's on the phone with my grandma. Sister's in the back seat, and I'm like mocking her over on the side. My mom's like, hey, Mom, like, how you doing today? I'm like, hey, Mom, how you doing today? And she's like, cut it out. And I was like, cut it out. And my sister's cracking up. I'm just doing it to make my little sister laugh. My mom goes, hold on real quick. Shifts the phone, grabs the wheel, and just wham, right into my chest. I was like, oh, I deserve that. 100% deserved it. And I knew in my mind, like, that's on me. Only other time I really got hit is my mom told me to do something. I'm an angsty teen listening to our pop punk like we do. And she said something, and I, under my breath, just muttered, I was like, bitch. And
God damn.
Oh my God. Like, we don't swear in my house. Like, I didn't even say but around my parents. Sorry, Mom, if you hear this. I've sworn a little bit on this. My bad. But I like, looking back, I was just a stupid kid. Should not have said that. My mom's a great human being, but I like muttered it, and she heard it, informed my dad. And it's like one of those, he's like, oh, you want to be a man? Now you're going to be a man. And that was like one of the few times I ever he like got the paddle, and like, I like panicked, ran away, was trying to hide behind the fridge, cover my ass and be like, no, don't hit me. And like, I'm like crying. And it's like, you realize that he's trying to instill like, you don't talk to women like that, especially your mom. You don't talk to a woman you respect. You don't do that. And it was like teaching me how to be a man. And I think I don't know if I don't think I'll ever hit my kids, but if I ever have a son and he disrespects my mom, it's like, oh, if you want to be a man, then you're going to have to like stand up and be a man for this situation. You know what I mean?
This is what I think. My parents raised me in a very similar way. Mm-hmm. And I think that that was the best they could do at that time.
Yeah.
But at this time, I'm expected to do better.
Fair.
And so,
yeah.
So I'm trying to like do better. Yeah. You were talking about like your mom, like shaking you just really quickly. Uh-huh. I remember my moment where my daughter was like screaming like so much, and I was just like, oh my God, I could just pick her up and shake her right now. Like, yeah. I mean, and I was aware enough to go like, this is what they're talking about.
This is the
and then go like, okay, like I got to take a step back. Like I took a step back. I think I actually maybe stepped out of the room, and she was still like screaming like bloody murder. But like, I was like, wow. Like, I mean, but after that moment, everything got real easy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it, but just like my tolerance and patience and everything just kind of changed. Mm-hmm. And then that got me to here, which I think was really good. I probably needed that moment. Yeah. It's really where my moment, like where I just dropped my ego about what was like, I was being, she has no ability to get anything she wants, say anything she wants, do anything. Like, and I got mad that she's like yelling. You know what I mean? Like how selfish is that? Yeah.
And you take the break and you're like, how else is she going to communicate this? That being said, hearing a baby scream, you're just like, I want to, like on a plane or in public, I'm like, I want to go shake that baby. And it's like, imagine hearing it 24 hours a day. Like, oh, I get it 100%. And it's like you said, it's that moment of reflection, and you're like, oh, got to kill my ego, got to let it die for a second, and this will help me in the long run go take that breather, reconnect, refine my center kind of thing, you know?
This is cliche. Being a parent is a hard thing, and it's super rewarding too. Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart. I don't think everybody should do it. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I did it, but I don't recommend it necessarily to everybody. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
I think that's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how I usually like to wrap this thing up is like I ask people, hey, what do you do to take care of yourself so that you can take care of everyone else around you? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say like doing art is part of the way that you kind of like soothe yourself. So like just what are the things that you do to take care of yourself?
So I know I listened to the podcast a few times, and
so you kind of know what I'm doing here.
Yeah. I've been trying to think because I knew this question was going to come up. The way I try to like, I'm a very extreme person. And I think that's one thing my parents instilled in me is work hard and then play hard. And it's
a weird balance, kind of.
Yes.
It maybe not the most productive or necessarily the great, but like it is a level of, it is a kind of a type of balance, right? You know what I mean?
And I do think that's how I take care of myself the best is be aggressive, do the work, and then quit having regrets about playing hard.
Let me ask you this. Like, would you call that like you're trying to live life as much as possible?
Yeah. I think that's really what it is. I mean, we are all going to die one day. Try to get the most out of it. You know what I mean? That's one thing I'm not very good at is relaxing and doing nothing. Me and my parents went on vacations all, not all growing up, but now that, they don't have kids anymore and they have supplemental income, they, like to take us on vacations. And we have the hardest time doing resort style vacations where you just sit there and relax. It's like, let's go do something. And like we went to Greece and it was like, no, let's go see the Acropolis. We're not going to sit in an Airbnb and drink Greek beer the whole time. Like, let's actually go see what there is in this world. And we have a mutual friend, Ren, and she was very instrumental in getting me through that is like she was the reason the first time I ever took a solo trip was out to Big Bend and Enchanted Rock out here. And Enchanted Rock is my favorite place in the earth. And the first time I ever went by myself, I climbed all the way up the rock, sat on the back of it and just drew the landscape for a little bit. And I think that's one thing, where my art comes from is a lot of it is I try to make things look cool. But for myself personally, the art that I do for me are little sketches from like moments. Instead of like taking a picture, doing a snapshot, I try to just sketch it out. It's real rough. It doesn't look like my style at all, but those are what I take back from vacations. Whenever me and Logan went to Hawaii, I did probably 4 of those sketches where I just sat on a beach, or we went to this hostel and we sat on the back of this hostel, talked to a couple locals, and it was just 3 hours of just shooting the shit with each other. And I sat kind of in the corner for like 30 minutes of it. And I just sketched the 5 of us out there sitting and just talking. And I think that is one thing I love about my art is there are things I do for other people. There are things I do to try to promote it and grow it as a business, to try to make money off of it. And then there are those things that I just do for myself. And I think those are the ones that mean the most to me. And then the other stuff, I'm like, that's what I'm doing for the world. I am trying to do things for the world, but the other ones are just for me. And I think that's what I love about my art is there is a good balance of, doing a little bit for me, a little bit for other people.
You have to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think those sketches allow you to be more present? Like, is there something weird about the way your mind, like my girlfriend, a lot of times if we're having like a really deep discussion about like us or something like that, she'll doodle.
Yeah.
And sometimes like maybe some people would go like, that's rude. Like you're not paying attention, but she's totally paying it. I feel like that's how she pays attention. So yeah. I just let it go. Like it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you kind of do that, like you're taking in auditory and visually in the way that you do, and that helps you be present.
I 100% agree. I have a real hard time unless like when it comes to drinking, I love like if I'm chatting with somebody and we're going to drink, I would rather do it at a pool hall or like sitting on the back deck than be like at a bar, just sitting at the bar talking to somebody.
Do you like when people smoke indoors?
Yeah. I do. I think it's so cool. I love going to casinos because I think it's the last frontier of the world is you walk in and it's just stale cigarette smoke. And like my grandpa smoked all throughout my life till I was probably
very romantic.
16. And I would come home. My mom was like, God, you reek of cigarette smoke. Like go wash your clothes. And every time I would smell it, I would think, oh, I'm at grandpa's house, I'm like, I'm with my papa right now. I love that smell. And so to this day, I love the smell of stale cigarette smoke because it just reminds me of being at my papa's house and it's the best. But yeah, like you were saying, the little like, I need something to like do so I can listen at the same time. Otherwise, my brain's trying to go 8 different ways, or like I'll sit here and like twitch with my hands. I'll spin my like I don't think I've done it so far on this, but like I'll tap my rings or I'll like tap them on something just because like I'm real fidgety. Like my brain won't shut up. And it's like, if I can do something with my hands where like those are distracted so I can actually listen to you, 100% will do that on occasion. Yeah.
Do you want, here is my theory and a compliment to you. And this is the way I feel about my girlfriend as well. I think there's so much creative stuff coming out of her. It's just constantly coming out. Like she just has to get it out. Like it's just inside her.
Yeah.
And so like usually like we get along the best when she's consistently doing art.
Yes. Yeah.
Because she's getting it out. Like she has to get that out because it's trapped inside her. And it's like something in the world is speaking to her to get this out. Does that resonate with you?
100%.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of that, the sketching is just getting it out so you can actually listen to what this person is saying. And, and everybody takes things in a different way. So like if you don't think somebody like talk to them about it, don't just assume they're not listening.
Right. Yeah. And I cannot express to you enough, like every issue in the world, that's what TV has given. I love TV. That's what it taught me. Every issue in this world is just miscommunication. That's literally the only problem with this world is miscommunication. And I think that's the one thing that you can work on adjusting is just talk to that person and be like, hey, whenever you were sketching earlier, that was weird that you were doing that while we were trying to have this deep conversation. And they're like, oh, I was just keeping my hands busy so I could actually listen to you. And it's like, oh, well, why would I be upset? That actually benefits me. Cool. Great. Keep doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're never going to know that unless you ask them and talk about it. And I was in therapy for a while and I need to get back into it, but I moved and it's hard to find someone, all that other stuff. But that was the big thing that me and my therapist, shout out Jenna, love her to death. She taught me, it's like, you cannot over communicate with somebody. Like you just can't do it. Like all you're going to do is open up more, let them see you more. And that's the biggest thing I took away from therapy is like, you got to talk shit through. Like you have to talk about things. That's where all the issues come from is when you don't talk about it. And it sucks. Talking about real stuff sucks so bad, but it will infinitely make your life better.
The truth will set you free.
It really will. Yeah. And that's the other, like, I cannot express to you enough how much it sucks. I think it's why me and my girlfriend are doing as well as we are.
Because of therapy?
It's because
therapy you did? Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was, and I would, I'd go to my session. She's not in it, but I'd come back and I'd tell her what I learned that day or like what I need to work on. And it was always just, we got to talk more. And it was like, you're moving to Phoenix. Are you nervous about that? And I was like, yeah, like Texas is my home. I will be a ride or die Texan until the day I kick off. Like I'll have Whataburger and Lone Star on my headstone for the rest of it, but like, I'm so nervous. And it's like, well, why are you nervous? And then we talk that through rather than I moved to Phoenix and I just, I miss Texas every day. And it's like, then I'm just like bottling it up and I'm just angry at Phoenix and I'm angry at her. And it's, if we can talk about that, then I'm not angry anymore. I'm just a little sad every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you have a good time today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would not have wanted to spend this Friday any other way. I'll say that much.
Was this what you expected? Or what did you expect?
No, this is way better than I expected.
Yes.
I have so much social anxiety and like, this is a great lubricant, I'll be honest, but like, I was very nervous. You know what I mean?
Really?
And then, yeah, I love to be a ham. I love to be a character, but like actually talking, I'm not always the best at it, if that makes sense.
I think you did great.
Okay. Well, thanks, man.
Push that mic out. I'm gonna ask you to give me a hug.
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.